I don't want to waste any time. I would love to get started. We're going to be giving Roland the special treatment with this presentation and then putting this online for our monthly peer discussion series we have here at Celeritas. We are a digital marketing company doing digital transformation and work with software in the animal health and veterinary industry for the past 10 plus years. And every month, I like hosting these peer discussions to just kind of chat about the state of the veterinary industry, how we're changing with the rise of new technology and using new tools and ideas to further the industry. And someone who I feel is doing that is our special guest and our facilitator today, Tyler Primavera, who is the co-founder of Vetspacito, a very powerful e-learning company that is helping bridge the gap in communication with Spanish speakers and the veterinary clinic and their relationship with those communication gaps. So Tyler, I would love for you to give the introduction to yourself and Vetspacito, what you guys have been doing, and hey, welcome. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Daniel. Good to be here. Yeah, so Vetspacito, it is a small little company, and we formed it. My co-founder and I, Dr. Kano, is a veterinarian out of Los Angeles, California, and Spanish is her first language, whereas English is my first language. And we both kind of agreed that there's a huge need for more Spanish-speaking veterinary professionals. And so we thought of, okay, well, how can we address this problem? We could make a translation service, but there's already translation services out there. So through a lot of brainstorming, we ended up on making videos to help bridge this language barrier. And a video is never supposed to replace a person, right? You simply can't do that. But it's just another tool in communication to help pet parents kind of understand what's going on, because I believe education is a big part of pet care. And it's important we educate pet parents to understand why things are important so they can make the best decision.
Well said. And I'm very glad that we got connected to each other just as a result of a new hire of yours, Abby, who is doing your marketing, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Abby's been great. She's taken some time off for school. Just it got a bit too crazy, but yes.
Well, I'm glad that she introduced us, and I would love to get started on the presentation you have prepared, but I want to put in the chat just some relevant links for reference. I've got Tyler's LinkedIn. I've got the Vetspacito LinkedIn, the Vetspacito website, and their YouTube. And so I hope that this is available when we have the restream of our of this. But I know that we'll be putting it in the notes that we send out to everyone after the event. So there it is in the chat. And Tyler, without further ado, I would love to get started.
Sure. Am I the host now, or?
Yeah, I think you'll be able to share. I put it on for all participants. Let me know if it works for you.
Perfect. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, Roland, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions since you're the main person in the audience today. So, welcome. So, communication and e-learning, and I'm going to be specifically talking about the Spanish part of veterinary medicine. And you may be thinking, wait, Spanish veterinary medicine? A little quick question to you, Roland. What do you do in veterinary medicine? Do you work in a clinic, or what brings you here today?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, um, well, right now, I'm in between roles. I came from a specialty veterinary hospital, and I'm going to a general practitioner to be somewhat like a practice manager, but has a totally different name and has less or targeted responsibilities. I'm going to mainly work with the clients on, and then also overseeing their virtual team. And I am going to give information on communication with clients.
Very nice. And where are you located at?
I'm in
Roughly.
Chicago,
Okay.
Illinois.
Is there a decent need for Spanish speakers, or what has your experience been with
Oh,
that?
yeah, I would say with my previous employer, we always had a need. It's a little bit of a multicultural work environment, so we would have people who were Spanish speakers who could jump in and help, but like on a regular basis to have someone available and not utilize a team member, it's greatly needed.
Yeah, I gave a presentation recently, and there's a bilingual veterinary assistant, and her workplace called her on her days off to help translate. Even on her sick days, they would call
Wow.
her. And that just broke my heart. I mean, mental health is such a
Yeah.
big, huge, important thing to me. And it's just, oh, she's valuable, but at what cost are they, using her skills, So I'm glad that you realize that there's a big need for this skill set. Okay. So, little presentation outline. I'm going to talk about some stories. I'm going to talk about some numbers that kind of back up those stories. And I want to pose a question to the audience. Is it our responsibility as veterinary professionals to learn a new language? And then I'll talk about, in the second half, some of the solutions. What do we do next? Well, we know there's a challenge here, but what do we really do about it? And how can communication and education play a role in that? So I want you to think about, what's your story? You came to this presentation today with an expectation. Maybe there's an experience you've noticed yourself, or a story you've heard somewhere in the veterinary industry about the need for Spanish speakers. And I'll share a few stories. So I've been surveying some veterinary professionals in our field. And so I'll share the first story from a bilingual veterinarian. A few weeks back, a child told our staff the dog was spayed. The dog was male. And when I talked to the mother in Spanish, I found that he was not neutered. It was, in fact, cryptorchid. This could have been detrimental to my patient if I had not been able to discuss this directly with the adult. I was not only able to obtain this information, but also explain to the owner the importance of sterilization and work out a time for neutering. This patient, in the absence of a Spanish-speaking person, would have been marked sterilized and may have suffered health complications from the retained testicles in his abdomen. And as veterinary professionals, we're mostly familiar with the fact that cryptorchid testicles can turn into cancer very quickly. So here in this first story, we see that language is actually reducing the risk of cancer in this one situation. It's powerful. Second situation was from a different bilingual veterinarian, and she says she had to stay late taking on a case one day to reassess this patient. And in this particular case, the patient suffered in having a prompt diagnosis because there's missing information from her history, which was never fully communicated. And it took 3 different times of coming back to the clinic to get that full history. So this veterinarian goes on to say, I think the possibility of missing information is huge in cases such as those. And if it was a blocked male cat, there could have been dire circumstances of not understanding what she meant by abdominal pain and having an odd position. There's a difficulty with the case because she basically was the only one to assess that the cat had urinary issues and actually cystitis, but it took 3 appointments of tests and blood work and going back and forth to get the diagnosis, where language could have cut those visits potentially in half, or maybe just even 1 visit. And this veterinarian says she thinks that was a significant moment. The next story is from a bilingual veterinarian, and she says she also had another case, so same one as before, where I had a Spanish speaker come in with their kid, and the kid tries to translate for his mother, but he had been mistranslating our jargon, and I had to speak up and correct them and speak to them in Spanish, even though they never asked for help in Spanish. But there could have been a grave mistranslation if left to a family member to translate. The son was basically adamant that he spoke perfect English. So even though he was insistent that he spoke perfect English, medical English is different. Um, so lastly, my own story where I was, little background, I'm a general practitioner, and I was giving a puppy shot for the first time to this beautiful Jack Russell Terrier puppy, little white, wiry hair. Um, and so this girl brings the pet into the clinic. I give it its puppy shot, and I look through its fur, and there's little bugs crawling all throughout its skin. Had the worst case of fleas I've seen in a while. So I give it its puppy shot, and I say to the girl, "Hey, your dog has fleas. It's uncomfortable. I recommend flea treatment." She's like, "Okay, I'll tell my parents." So she tells her parents, and basically they never come back to our clinic. We never see them again. And at that point, I took it personally. As a veterinarian, I'm the bottom line, right? If the patient suffers or gets better, it's my responsibility. And so in that moment, I realized how important communication is. It literally can change the life of my patients. And so you may be thinking, well, that's great. I want some numbers. So we have been giving different seminars. We got a seminar today with VetCore teaching veterinary Spanish. In a previous seminar, we did a survey, and the top two complaints that were tied for first place when it came to the Spanish language barrier in veterinary medicine was team frustration and client compliance. It's frustrating to not get your point across for both sides. And in this survey, 100% of participants, so these are veterinary professionals, mostly assistants, thought that pet parent education is important. So, Roland, how many people speak Spanish at your clinic that you know of? And what percentage is that roughly?
Wow, I never thought about it numbers wise, but at my previous employer, it's about, I would say maybe 5 to 10%.
That's pretty good. So in this research paper, they did research on, nearly 400 vet practices in 10 states, 10 most rapidly growing states with the Latino population. And the best case scenario is roughly 12% of technicians speaking Spanish. At a recent conference I spoke at, a lot of people, it was, 1% of people. And goodness gracious, help us if they ever take a day off or have a sick day. So in many states, there is a huge need for Spanish speakers in veterinary medicine. But best case scenario, we got 12% of people speaking Spanish. Worst case scenario, 0%. So there's a huge need out there. To emphasize this, so some data. In 2020, the United States Census Bureau counted about 62 million Hispanic people. And with about 36% of them being pet owners, it's about 22 million pets. That is a lot of vaccines. That is a lot of spaying and neutering. How are we communicating this? Well, bilingual staff, if we have them, brochures, if we're able to use them. But, the part of this discussion is about e-learning, a new way of learning that is more scalable and more accessible. It's hard to explain things in the room when maybe, the client's holding on to Fluffy and Fluffy's just running around everywhere. They really don't pay attention too well when there's a lot going on. So this is where videos come in, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later when it comes to e-learning. So, you may be thinking, well, that's great, but I'm a veterinary professional. I've got, in your case, Roland, schedules to make, employees to keep motivated and to check up on them. I got to manage a lot of things. And a lot of veterinary professionals, they focus on the medicine. Now, I agree, medicine is important. I am a doctor of veterinary medicine, but medicine without communication, well, it's not super great. I can know all the diseases in the world and all the treatments and all the surgeries, but if I can't convey the importance of that to the pet parent, well, what's going to happen? The pet's not going to get care. So this is why I'm so passionate about language. So I want you guys to think about, is it the veterinarian's responsibility? Is it the veterinary staff's responsibility to go above and beyond and to learn a whole new language? I'm not saying your answer is right or wrong, but I just want you to think about that. So in a survey that was done by Dr. Landau, they found that a lot of common thoughts around language when it comes to Spanish, one common thought was that clients should learn to speak English. Another thought, it's not a matter of language, it's a matter of education and money. Well, how do you know that? Did you communicate with them? Did you speak to them in their language? It's complicated. We can't just boil it down to education and money. The need to learn Spanish is a region-specific issue. I agree with that, and I agree, and I assert that that region is the United States. So pretty darn big region, not just one state or a few states. And lastly, Spanish should be studied outside of vet school, not in vet school. And the evidence in multiple vet schools will show that there is an increasing trend amongst vet schools to include veterinary Spanish as an elective or somehow incentivizing students to learn veterinary Spanish. This highlights the importance of this very valuable skill set in order to treat patients and to connect with more people. So, solutions. I hope you got your notebooks out. Number one solution for the veterinary Spanish problem in the US is to hire more bilingual staff. Thank you for coming to my talk. That will be all. Just kidding. Now you may be thinking, hire bilingual staff? I can't even hire staff in general. I mean, I'm lucky if they speak one language. So, okay, maybe I'll give you the second solution here, all right? Learn Spanish. Pop out your Duolingo in your free time and just keep learning Spanish until you get it, right? Okay, all sarcasm aside, these are complicated issues, right? We can't just hire more people that speak Spanish. There's a shortage of people to hire. And we can't just simply learn an entire language in a weekend. It takes time. So this is where we need to get creative. And let's see if I'm sharing my sound. Just reshare that. Okay, I am sharing my sound. Okay, so we need to get creative. And to emphasize this point, I'll share a little comedic TikTok video.
Buenos dias, Aaron.
Buenos dias, Miguel. Hello, down my phone.
No. Solamente. En español, por favor.
I believe that every man, woman, and child in this country should learn how to speak Spanish. They are our neighbors to the south, and this would be a healing thing for all of North America. And I am going on vacation next week to Cancun.
Buenos dias, Jaime.
Buenos días, Miguel. ¿Cómo está? ¿Bien? Claro que sí. Yo soy fantástico. ¿Qué pasa?
Ha! Buenos dias, Dwight.
Just get Vetspacito, Spanish veterinary education.
Any Office fans out there?
That was a good reference.
Yeah. So in the video, Sarah on TikTok was showing you basically how you can basically integrate it into your practice. And at the end of the video, it was an ad for our videos that would communicate that. So we developed a platform, built out a whole website and payment integration system. But then I realized, the main thing is getting the word out. We don't care if people pay for it, sure. It'd be nice to make some profit in this business, but really we're in the business of helping pets. And I discerned basically that we should make these videos free on YouTube because we want to help as many pets as possible. So Daniel will link to that later. But now in the next segment, I'd like to teach you some Spanish. So full disclaimer, English is my first language. I'm not even Hispanic. My last name's Italian. And for the past year, I've been learning Italian. So it's kind of funny, in vet school, I didn't speak any Spanish, but now I'm trying my best to speak Spanish. And I'll share some tips with you now. So, pepperoni, delicious treat. A lot of my patients love this stuff. They're not sponsoring this, by the way, but I found a lot of dogs really love pepperoni. And it helps you learn Spanish if you look at the word. So pepperoni, the word for dog is kind of hidden there. In there, you just have to use your imagination. So pepperoni, dog love pepperoni. So P-E-R-O is in pepperoni, and you add another R to that to get perro. So when the double R is together, you kind of have to roll your tongue if you're able to. So if you're thinking about, well, what's the word for dog in Spanish? You think about dogs loving pepperoni, and you say perro or perra. So male dog or female dog. All right. So Has anyone seen this popular YouTube video? Cute kid arguing with his mother, right? He's saying, "Listen, Linda." This cute kid is saying, "Listen, Linda." That's how you say cute in Spanish. There you go. So cute kid, lindo or linda are different ways to say cute. So cute dog would be perro lindo. Perro, like pepperoni, and lindo, like listen, linda. And as you can see, you know, the last letter kind of matches, right? So if it's masculine, it's O. So perro, lindo. The O's need to match there. Okay, so next up, I'm going to talk about my mortal enemy, the flea. Whenever I see these nasty little bugs, I want to pull them off the skin, right? I see them crawling around the skin, and I grab them, pick them up, pull them off the skin. So for fleas, we need to pull these guys off the skin. And you put pull and guys together, and it sounds like pulgas. This is how you say fleas in Spanish, pulgas. So you may be thinking, okay, Tyler, that's great. You taught me 3 words with these little tricks, but I actually want to learn a full sentence. Can you teach me that? And I'll say, sure, I can do that for you. So when I presented this presentation at a conference in Washington, I talked about, you know, the Super Bowl that they won that one time in a few years ago. So the Coach Carroll, he wants to win the next Super Bowl. But imagine him hopping on a pogo stick, and he's kind of little by little getting along. He can't really go super fast on a pogo stick. But he's trying to get there as fast as possible. So you think of him saying, "Vamos. Vamos, I want to go and win the next Super Bowl." Why? Because after the Super Bowl, I can get a drink and have a celebration. Now, I'm not much of a drinker, but imagine he's drinking a Jaeger. So you may be thinking, okay, Tyler, this is getting a little crazy now. Where is this going? So I'll reiterate, pogo stick, vamos, very quickly to a Jaeger. Well, as fast as you can vamos on a pogo stick. So altogether, we think about poco a poco, vamos a llegar. This means little by little, we will get there. And that's what I want you to think about. How will we get there together? What is your story? You know, my story is I'm a veterinarian and I'm trying to do the best for my patients here. And little by little, we will get there together. And how will we do this? We can do this by communicating. There's a lot of different ways to communicate, and we need to be more open-minded about how we're doing that. You know, we can't just rely on the one person. And Vespacito is here to show that it can be done in many ways. And so one avenue we have is our video library now on YouTube, which you can find to help educate pet parents in Spanish. So this is a presentation, an outline of my presentation. We talked about some stories. We talked about even the one story where the little boy was adamant he spoke perfect English. And, you know, I believe he spoke very good English, but I think his medical English and medical Spanish wasn't really there. So we need to think about how we're addressing our clients in the room. A lot of times they need to communicate through their child. And I think that's kind of too big of a burden to place on someone so young, translating complex medical diseases. I talked about some data. There's a lot of Spanish speakers in the United States, and a lot of them have pets. It might not be apparent at first that they speak Spanish. I mean, not a lot of clinic forms ask that, hey, what is your preferred language? Is it English or is it Spanish? But the need is definitely there. I talked about our responsibility. Personally, I believe it is my responsibility to try to communicate my best possible with the clients. You know, in the veterinary oath that I took for veterinarians, it says that I will do my best to, you know, uphold veterinary medical ethics, but also protect the human-animal bond and safeguard animal health and welfare for society. Well, does it say for English-speaking people or people who understand me? No, for society. And society is full of diverse people that speak many different languages. Now, it's a bit much to learn every single language spoken in the US, but the number 2 language in the US is Spanish. So that makes sense to start there in terms of making the biggest impact for the most amount of people and their pets. I talked about some solutions. Of course, hiring bilingual staff and learning Spanish are probably the most complete solution, but a lot of times in vet med, we have to work with what we have. So that's where being open-minded comes in, using free YouTube videos, using videos in different forms of communication to help educate our pet parents. Because ultimately, the best medicine in the world doesn't do any good if we can't communicate it and convince people to sign up. So I taught you some silly Spanish mnemonics. So what was the word for dog? You think dogs like what treat? So how do you say dog in Spanish?
Perro.
Perro, yes. And then pulgas, you pull the guys off the skin, fleas, and little by little, we will get there together on a pogo stick. Poco poco, vamos a llegar. So my call to action, it's really good to talk about what we think things should be like and, to make suggestions, but I want you to take action. So on our website, we have some free brochures you can use, and our YouTube channel has free videos that you can also show to clients when they're in the waiting room or in the exam room, or even say, hey, I know we're really busy today and I wasn't able to explain this, but you can watch these videos for free at home. So what will your story be? How will you make an impact in the lives of your clients, in the lives of your patients? I want you to be open-minded and to think beyond the traditional ways of explaining things. Sure, brochures are great, but a lot of times I've seen them being thrown away. So this is why we need to think about, e-learning through the internet, through videos, basically all the above to help our patients. And here are some references. And now I want to open this up to a discussion. What part of this presentation stood out to you? Picking at random, let's see, random person. Oh, Roland, what do you think?
I would say the example that you gave so quickly on how to learn Spanish, like a few words to a whole sentence. Sorry.
You were saying that the examples I gave with the assistants, could you clarify that some?
Oh, the examples of speaking Spanish, or at least learning how to with the analogies that you provided.
I have
Sure.
to I have to say that you taught me Polgas today, and honestly, I'm from a Spanish speaking family. They'd be ashamed I didn't know this terminology, but I will never forget. Got to pull those guys out, and that one's gonna stick with me. That was really good. I like the mnemonics.
Yeah, so part of what Vespacito is doing is we have our free videos. We've also been doing corporate training seminars. So in terms of, veterinary corporations investing into training seminars on how to train their frontline, their staff on how to communicate with Spanish-speaking pet parents. So we're excited to partner with different corporations that also share our mission there.
That's awesome. And I have to say, just, from becoming familiar with some of your work and with what Vespacito is doing on YouTube, the production value is amazing. I really have to say, I really love how well produced a lot of the videos you have on that channel are. I'm curious about what that process was like.
The process of producing those videos.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride. So did you watch all the videos? So you saw the ones with the pictures of the face and then the ones with the actual video of the face?
Oh, I didn't get to watch all of them. No.
Okay. So our first group of like 30 videos, we got stock footage and we used an AI voice for the Spanish. It sounds really good though. It's hard to tell sometimes. And then that was our first iteration. And then our second iteration, I kind of realized, well, I really want to dial down more on a specific topic. So I'm a general practitioner. I spend most of my days talking about heartworm prevention, spaying and neutering. a dental disease. So then we really expanded on those 4 topics, like making 5 different videos for each of those topics, like everything pet parents would need to know about anesthesia or heartworm testing, or why does my dog need a rabies vaccine? So super important things. And we've had multiple iterations where, at one point it was me in front of the camera with a teleprompter trying to speak broken Spanish. And just, I got a lot better at speaking Spanish, but it was definitely an exercise in frustration. So then I recruited my friend Deanna, who's from Peru. She's a veterinary assistant, to do the speaking for me. And at one point, my PC laptop ran out of storage and the webcam wasn't very good. So I thought, well, I'm going to go for it. So I bought a MacBook to like produce it. And so that's what I'm zooming from now, my MacBook. But a lot of ups and downs. It's been a crazy ride, but I'm really appreciative that you enjoy the production value.
Yeah, of course. And I just wanted to kind of talk about, what you see as the future, to expect in the future. I know that you presented this really compelling graphic saying that, there's going to be a really big expected increase in Spanish speakers by 2060, I think it was, right? And, I'm seeing as I work with more and more clients on different projects, whether it's just portals or different apps, that some are asking more and more for, a Spanish side to their portal, or Spanish translation to what we're working on. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, and if you expect to see things of that nature more and more in the future.
Yeah, there definitely is a demand for it, but whether or not people realize it is another thing, right? So I imagine a lot of your clients that you work with that are requesting Spanish, it's because they're open-minded. They realize that, well, I understand this completely fine, but maybe there's other people out there that don't. And I think the proof is in the pudding. Over time, businesses who are not prioritizing Spanish or a more diverse way of serving people in general will start to suffer. I was talking to a veterinarian who was saying like, hey, he knows that there's Spanish speaking pet parents that drive 50 miles to a clinic just because they know that one person speaks Spanish there. People feel comfortable relating to people who speak their language. So that's just a little anecdote that shows that people will do a lot of things. They'll be your number one fan for your business if you kind of meet them halfway. And that's what we believe in. We believe in putting people first.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's important. I think the accessibility aspect changes everything. My grandma and grandpa are both Cuban immigrants who, mainly speak Spanish primarily. And so it's much easier for them, whether they're dealing with things related to healthcare, whether they were dealing with, vet visits for their dog in the past. It was a lot easier on them to find Spanish speaking services to kind of close that communication gap that you can kind of see sometimes in like less high stakes aspects, like if they're out at the diner and they're like, just, instead of knowing what's being asked of them, they just start like nervously laughing. It's like, there's the healthcare industry is a high stakes thing. And I think that that's where to set our sights on bridging divides in communication and education is important. And so I think that the more and more we find creative solutions and can use tech and different digital tools for achieving that, the better. But with that being said, I'm very glad that you were able to join us and give this very succinct and great presentation. And I know that you were just coming off from a veterinary conference where you presented something similar. How is that?
Yeah. It was good. It was my first talk at a conference. I've given talks at vet schools before, but it was really encouraging to see people come and turn up and agree with me that, hey, this is a significant issue, and this is something we need to do something about.
Yeah, and congrats on the first kind of speaking opportunity at a big conference. I'm sure that was exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely was exciting. We hope that, this webinar goes out and people check out our YouTube. As a veterinarian, it's a lot to think about business. And I'm not really business trained, I'm medically trained. And so the decision to make the videos public, it took me a few months to kind of come to that conclusion, but I believe it's the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And great on you for making these free to access. So again, I'm just going to put in the chat and we'll put in the meeting notes that we send out after this, including all the people that RSVP'd online. We'll be sending out some notes on this conversation, but here are some of the links. And Roland, I thank you for participating in this as well. I appreciate you coming out here, and I know that you were in the discussion that we held yesterday for the practice managers roundtable, was it?
Oh yeah, I was present for that, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming by, and I think with that we can say goodbye. And thank you again, Tyler, for taking part.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great to chat with you. All right, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.